All right, welcome back, and let's get the perspective of local manufacturing on this directive by the CBN now to deposit money banks in the country. I'm now being joined on the program by Muda Yusuf, who is the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Yusuf, for local manufacturing that your organization represents, how good is this news that, this directive now by the CBN?
I believe it is a very good policy because for quite a while we have seen what looks like a disconnection between the banking system and the real economy. A disconnection between the banking system and entrepreneurs. And this is not good for the economy. This represents a major financial intermediation problem. We have had many years of the public sector crowding out the private sector in the credit market because of the flight of investment and funds from investment into the purchase of treasury-based federal government bonds and all of that. All of these have created very serious distortions in the financial system, depriving entrepreneurs of funding, of finance, and all of that. So we had situations where the banks were more interested in investment in treasury base, in making money from transactions in the foreign exchange market and all of that, at the expense of those who are taking the risks to invest, those who are creating wealth, and those who are creating jobs. So this misalignment, has been hurting the economy. So it's a welcome development that the central bank is coming up with this policy. We believe that it will compel the banks to be more creative, to be more innovative, and to also expose themselves to some measure of risk. Because you cannot have a banking system that will operate with a zero tolerance for risk policy. Each time an entrepreneur approaches the bank, sometimes the collateral requirement is as high as 150% of the value of the facility. Or sometimes the entrepreneur has to go and bring a bank guarantee, which is as good as having the cash yourself. So all these things are challenges for development. They are challenges for investment. And I believe that this policy should have a very good positive impact on the flow of funds from the financial system to those who are creating wealth in the economy.
Now, when you look at the deadline given by the central bank, September is what the central bank has given to the banks now to comply. You have a space of 3 months. You think the banks will be able to meet that deadline?
Well, there is nothing so considerably difficult about it. I think it's a question of just balancing the portfolio. Already, the banks are doing something close to that threshold. Some banks are already doing about 50, some are already doing 55, some are around 45% of their loan-to-deposit ratio. So the minimum threshold of 60% that has been set is not so significantly different from what some of the banks are already doing. But don't forget, this is a minimum. And if you compare this to what happens in other climes, you see that we are not doing well enough in terms of getting the banking system to interface with the investing community. The African average, for instance, of loans to deposit ratio is 78%. The global average is around 100%. For the advanced economies, it's about 120%. So we are very far away from what should be. And we cannot run an economy where we have this kind of disconnect between the banking system and the investing community. That is not good for our economy. It's not good for job creation. It's not good for economic inclusion. It's not good for poverty reduction. So these are the things that these are the kind of value that we believe that this policy will bring. Of course, the modalities are yet to be spelled out. The framework, of course, should be done in conjunction with the banking sector operatives so that we don't see too much of disruption to activities in the banking system.
You look at the banks that have been mentioned that actually not, that's in terms of their, their loan to deposit ratio, that they are still far behind, some around 45%. Banks that have actually not measured up now on this issue. There are the 5 big banks in the country. I mean, we're talking about banks like, it's not good to mention names, but we know names like Guarantee Trust Bank has been mentioned, First Bank has been mentioned, Zenith, UBA. These are the top big banks, and they are the 5 banks that have been mentioned as haven't failed, to reach that 60% threshold.
Well, I think it's a question of adjusting to the new policy. If there is a need, to review the deadline, of course, that can be discussed. I don't think anything is cast in stone. What is important is the whole principle behind the policy.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, do you think it's a coincidence that it's actually these 5 big banks that are, I don't want to use the word culprit now, but it's actually these 5 big banks that have incidentally not really matched up to that 60% threshold?
I don't think it is, because this is an issue that we have always talked about, especially in the organized private sector. Over time, we have complained about this issue of crowding out of the private sector in the credit market. We have complained about the fact that a lot of the resources in this economy from the banking system are going to the purchase of treasury-based federal government bonds, which don't create jobs for the economy, which don't lead to, building a competitive, or which is not promoting economic diversification. So I don't think it is something that is unusual. I don't think it's a coincidence that we need to worry about. What is important for us is to ensure that we get this policy working, we get the banking system properly aligned with the aspirations of the private sector and the aspirations of economic growth and development. We also get a banking system that we also have some tolerance for risk, because it is entrepreneurs that create wealth in any economy. And for them to create jobs, they are taking risk. So we cannot have a situation where the entrepreneurs are taking risk and the banks are not willing at all to take any part of the risk. I don't think that is fair on the economy, because we have to build a system that is sustainable. It is in the interest of both the banking community and the investing community and the citizens that we have an economy that is making progress, an economy that is creating jobs, an economy that is promoting economic inclusion, an economy that is reducing poverty. We need that kind of economy to promote social stability, to create an environment where all the players in the economy will be able to work in peace. And that is what sustainability of a system is all about.
And because you talked about risk now, I have to ask you, what's your reaction to the comments now of Fitch Ratings? I mean, saying that the directive could have negative impact on the loan books of banks in the country.
That the directive will have what?
That the CBN directive could affect the loan books of the banks negatively, because they are just coming out. I mean, we're just coming out of this whole issue of the high rate of non-performing loans, and that with this directive now, you could actually be throwing the banks back into that period when we had very huge non-performing loans.
No, I don't think so. If you look at the issue of non-performing loans, we need to be able to establish exactly what are the key factors. Of course, the factors of loan default arising from the performance of those sectors is a factor. But there are also a lot of corporate governance issues when it comes to the rise in non-performing loans. So there are a lot of factors that are responsible for this. But having said that, this policy is targeting at a more diversified portfolio of investment. It's looking more at bringing more SMEs more sectors on board rather than just focus on a few sectors. Because the structure of a loan portfolio before now is a situation where we have just about 20% of businesses accounting for about 80% of the credit, which is also
Absolutely.
not good for purpose of economic inclusion. So this policy is looking at a more diversified portfolio. And when you have a more diversified portfolio, the risk of significant default is also reduced. That is the spirit of this policy. I think it's a question of being more prudent. It's a question of being more creative in the way we manage the credit. But you cannot run away from the fact that the banking system also has to bear some risk in order to move this economy forward.
Mr. Yusuf, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's it on the program. But if you want to watch it again, all you do is go to our website, tv360nigeria.com. You'll find this program and lots more there. You can also follow the conversation on our various social media handles and continue to contribute to the program. So we'll wait and see how this directive pans out and how the banks actually go ahead to implement it. But there's no question at all that, if implemented to the letter, it will make some difference, at least some difference in the economy. But the fact is that we still have to deal with the issue of interest rate. When interest rates are so high, then it's difficult to see how people would come forward to want to access loans. We'll just wait and see how it all plays out. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.